Jordan Allen, our Deputy Commissioner of Operations, and Jeremy Norden Paul. And Jeremy, I'm not sure what your title is currently. What is your?
I'm the Director of the Division of Program Innovation.
Director of the Division of Program Innovation. Wow, that's a great title. That's actually better than what I thought it was going to be. So, hey, I appreciate y'all being here today. This is the Clinical Consultation Network. We do this every Tuesday at 12:30, and we always have really great guests like you guys on here. We've got several over the next several weeks that are going to be here as well. We're going to have next week Dr. Eric Carter from Vanderbilt is going to be here. Following week, we've got Chrissy Hood here talking about, what's Chrissy Hood talking about again, Babs? Help me remember. Oh, you're bringing it back up again. Yeah, next week or week after next is going to be Chrissy Hood addressing the need for adult size changing spaces in public places. April 19th, we got Laura Greer from Hamilton County Schools, who's their homeless liaison, who's going to be with us. And then on April 26th, our NAD collaboration is going to be with Dr. Uzama Price. She's going to talk about cultural considerations in IDD. So we've got a number of great guests upcoming. As I said, we do this every Tuesday at 12:30, so please join us for that. And today we have with us Jordan Allen, who, as I said a moment ago, is the Deputy Commissioner of Clinical Services for DIDD, and Jeremy Norden Paul, who is the Director of the Division of Innovation. And they are going to talk to us today about a new program through Medicaid called Medicaid Alternative Pathways to Independence. Did I get that right? And so I was fascinated by this topic when I heard the presentation that was done last week, because it's really such an important part of clinical work that we do, is to help people become more independent. And I'm really hopeful that clinicians are going to be able to join in and assist with getting people into these programs for more independent living. And so, so thankful to have you and Jeremy here today, Jordan.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I will admit, this in the pantheon of meetings and groups that we all engage in all week, every week, this is by far the most fun, and I would love to come back anytime. I could talk about the dictionary or paint drying in this room with this energy and these people. So, but I digress.
The thing about it, Jordan, is you could talk about those things and make them interesting. That's what's so great about it.
I don't know about that. You were talking about one. So at any rate, for those of you that I don't know personally or haven't met, as Dr. Davis indicated, I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Operations, have been in this work or in this business. In fact, you may not know this, but Dr. Davis and I first met in 2005. And at that point, he was working as a clinician in our service network. And he and I met through services he was providing for a person or two that we were supporting. Instantly became my favorite VA, my favorite clinical person in the network. And then we begged Bruce for the next 10 years to serve any and everyone he could. Even when he went to Vanderbilt and opened up his clinic there, we followed him like tireless groupies. And I'm not ashamed to say that I continue to do so today. So we've known each other for a long time. I certainly respect the work that you do, have done, and the impact you're having on the system in general. You were talking about a fun fact, and so I started kind of trying to think about something that I might disclose to the group, and then I heeded your advice about not going too far off the reservation with that fun fact. So I quickly reeled in several of the things I originally thought about saying. But I will tell you one thing that I find interesting is one of my best friends in high school. I grew up in South Florida, and as most kids in South Florida growing up, I was at the beach constantly and picked up surfing. And that was kind of my daycare as a young person. I got dropped off in the morning at the beach, and I'd get picked up in the afternoon. A good friend of mine named Kenny Burns was bitten on his right arm one afternoon by a shark. We were surfing at a place called Pump House. And he started screaming and yelling. It looked like a scene out of Jaws, except the shark was about 3.5, 4 feet, as opposed to the 35 or 40
It still has
that Jaws
shark
was.
teeth, though.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, there was blood in the whole nine. So he got out, and it got stitched up. This was on his right elbow. This is when we were in 8th grade. When we were juniors in high school, Kenny and I were surfing again at Pump House. I swear to you, this is true. And he was bit on the same arm, on the same elbow, at the same surf spot. So I happen to be good friends with a man that has not been bitten once, but has been bitten twice by a shark at the same spot, surfing in South Florida. So there you go.
Well, they say it's more likely to get struck by lightning than to be bit by a shark. He got bit twice. That's quite amazing. He must have something that flashes. His elbow must be shiny or something. I don't know. That is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a good fun fact. I appreciate you sharing that. Jeremy, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hey, thank you. Jeremy Norden, Paul, and as I mentioned, I'm leading the Division of Program Innovation, filling Harold Slove's shoes. He's retiring actually at the end of this week, and he's done amazing things for this department and really helped launch this division. So I'm excited to try to attempt fill those shoes. So I'll actually give you two fun facts. Following up on Jordan's theme about giant wild animals, when I was 20, I did something once that was exciting, but I'll never do again in my life, which is that I ran with the bulls in Spain one summer. And I have never run so fast or so furiously in my whole life, and I will never do it again. But it was really just an incredible once-in-a-lifetime experience. And then my other fun fact is that my family is going to be welcoming a new baby this summer. We already have a 4.5-year-old daughter, Ella, and we'll be welcoming a baby boy in July. So that's a fun fact about my family.
Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
And congratulations on living through the running of the bulls in Pamplona too. That's quite an amazing feat. How far is that race? Is it like I think I heard it was like 2,000 feet or something like that.
Right. It's not that far. Every city has their own route, but it's probably a quarter of a mile, a couple thousand feet, something like that.
So the guy next to you, do you say you can't outrun a bull? And you said, I don't have to outrun the bull, I just have to outrun you.
The secret is that you will never outrun a bull because they are very fast, and you just got to be worried about all the people behind you who are going to run over you.
I told you that in the old days I used to do rodeo, so I know that for a fact. You're correct, yes. Well, thank you both for being here today. I'm so excited for you to talk about this topic. And with all that, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Jordan, to kick us off. And I know you have to leave a little bit early, but Jordan's going to complete it for us.
Yeah, sure. Thrilled to talk about it. So I don't know if any of you sat through the presentation. I know Dr. Davis referenced it that we gave last week. Then we'll apologize in advance for any redundancy. But certainly any questions you have or to whatever degree you want to dive in a little bit deeper, please don't hesitate to do that here. So I'll give just a very, very quick 5-minute overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy to kind of run through a few of the slides. And then certainly we want to have any discussion or answer questions. So as Dr. Davis was indicating earlier, as folks collectively that have been involved with this system for a little bit of time, certainly have understood the needs, the varying degrees of need, and the wonderful diversity of services applied to folks across our network. One thing that's been true, at least since I've been here in 2005, is generally, while we've done a pretty good job of providing supports to people that have a high level of medical acuity and folks that have fairly significant challenges, whether that be behavioral health diagnosis or other co-occurring conditions. The one group, ironically, that has largely been left out of the direct service provision, really even the consideration of programming as it's been developed through a period of litigation and all the tumult that you guys know about, are young people that are either still in or just exiting the school system. And the reason for that are all those intuitive reasons that you immediately think of. But these people are typically not in crisis. They're usually living at home with mom and dad. And so they just haven't met the criteria for enrollment that we've had to apply to our population for the last 20 years of waiver services. Furthermore, some of these young people may or may not qualify or may not need Medicaid in general. And so as we began to think about the opportunity to address services for this group of folks that not that there hasn't been any support for, certainly vocational rehabilitation has a pre-ETS program, and there are services and supports, or at least philosophies of service that are being implemented in the school system. The last 3.5, almost 4 years here at the department, we've been lucky enough to have the freedom to innovate, have the ability to come up with thesis or theories and then apply those in a tested environment through pilot projects, and then derive all of this data that essentially shows the efficacy of all these incredible tools that are now just readily available. You know, they're very accessible, they're very affordable. In fact, where some of you live, Amazon will even drop those off via drone at this point. And so while that might have sounded like science fiction not long ago, it's today's reality, and people living with intellectual and developmental disabilities have been left out of the availability of those kind of tools and easily accessible things for a little bit of time. And so our thought was, let's pull in the experience that we've had thus far, use the data that has come from these pilot projects, and see if we can develop a program for young people, equipping them with the tools and experience that they might need to never need us. And that really is the goal. We want to be able to identify folks that won't need us, but would otherwise be driven to a service system that, if I'm being candid, works and creates dependency in a lot of ways. And so the MAPS program is the alternative to that. And I'll turn it over to you, Jeremy, and we can run through slides and then answer any questions.
Thank you, Jordan. So a lot of you may have been at the presentation we did last week on the 22nd. And so the first thing I'll say is that these slides are available on the MAPS website. In a few minutes, I can find that link and put it in the chat box. There's also a recording of the presentation. So I'm going to do my best to go through the slides rather quickly and not focus in great detail, especially on the specific services, not because it's not important or I don't want you to know about them, but because I know that time is limited in today's meeting, and I want to make sure that we have at least a little bit of time for comments and questions. But just rest assured that all of this information is out there, it's recorded, and if you ever have any questions, you know how to find me. So I think I can share my screen. Let me give this a shot.
And while you're doing that, Jeremy, Michelle shared the link to the information in the chat box. So the audience can get to that through that link that she just shared.
Perfect. And let me know once you can see my PowerPoint slides.
And I might interrupt you periodically just to ask a pointed question about some of this as we're going along. If there's a few things that I don't understand.
Absolutely. So can you see this okay? I've got a few screens here, and I want to make sure you're looking at the right screen. You should see a map of Tennessee with pathways to independence.
Jeremy, you're not on presentation view. It's really small, so I don't know if you can enlarge it or switch to, yeah.
Click from beginning, I think that would.
Yeah, I did.
There you go.
Is this working now? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Just let me know if I get off kilter here, okay? Don't be shy. So as we mentioned, we're going to be giving you just a real brief overview of MAPS, and we call this presentation Pathways to Independence because, like Jordan explained, that's what this entire thing is. It's about. It's about working with people, especially people who are still in school and who are at that age. I think we can all remember that age where we're learning so many new skills and we have these so many formative experiences, you know, learning to ride a horse or driving or, you know, just learning to do new things that significantly change the way that we experience the world and experience our independence and experience our lives. And so really it's about helping meet people at that point where we can teach them skills and give them tools and resources to create goals and become as independent as possible, so that they can really change the trajectory of their life. So it's really about enabling and empowering people to create a pathway toward independence. And that's going to look different for every person, but every person needs goals and every person needs a pathway. And so this program is set up to help people do that, and then giving them the tools and support they need to go down that pathway and to be successful. So in terms of funding and who we're looking to support, we received funding. The state of Tennessee was generous to invest funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, the federal relief funding. And we used that investment to, we were able to fund up to 1,250 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities over the course of the next 3 years. And really, we're looking for people who are interested in developing their independent living skills, with creating connections and relationships with their community, the people, places, and activities around them. We're looking for people who want to be able to get around more independently. We're looking for people who want to work in a job in the community and to grow professionally over the course of their life. And really fundamentally to this program, we're looking for people who are interested and eager to use enabling technology. It looks different for different people, but using technology as a tool to increase their independence across all areas of their life.
So quick question here, Jeremy. Is this program open only to new people coming into the system? Are existing people in the system able to transfer to this care or this program?
You must have read my mind, Dr. Davis, because that is the focus of our next slide here in terms of enrollment. And so I think this is going to answer your question, but if it doesn't, you let me know.
Step on your point if I need to. But okay, so I'll let you get to that in just a second. The other question, though, was is everybody who is involved in this project going to have some connection with enabling technology, or is the program able to be implemented without the use of enabling technology?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. And really a foundational piece of this program is the use of enabling technology as a tool. And so we're not prescriptive or rigid about what that looks like, because everyone's going to use different pieces in their life. It can be as simple as using a phone or a tablet to use Google Maps or other apps to navigate the community, to get around. It could be using different pieces at home. It could be using an app on someone's device at work to help them remember their job tasks or to connect with their job coach. So it absolutely is going to look different for each person. There are some pieces that are very, very simple and easy, and some of them are more complicated. But yes, fundamentally, there's an expectation that everyone will be able to use enabling technology in some way as a tool.
So enabling tech is a strategy here, but it's kind of like the way a lot of people live their lives already. I mean, you know, you and I both use a cellular phone throughout the course of our day. We couldn't survive without it. So, I mean, even something as simple as that would be enabling tech under this definition.
Right. And we're working with a lot of really great vendors and partners that have customized and developed different apps and applications on devices that are really, like you said, they're not rocket science in the sense that it's going to be too much of a shock. But like you said, I use my devices to get around, to make checklists, to communicate with people, to let them know I'm okay, to learn new things, to explore new environments. I do all that every day from my phone or my computer. So really, it's the same for people that we support, but we're working with some great partners to develop training and tools so that they can do that more successfully. Answer your question, Dr. Davis?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Perfect. So to kind of get to your question about who we're looking for, we are aiming enrollment at, these are the three main categories, and then I'll make a comment about that. So first, we're looking primarily for high school students who are sort of in that transition age youth category. during the 3 years leading up to their graduation. So for people who are graduating at 18, it's working with them between the ages of 15 and 18. For people who are graduating at 22, it's between the ages of 19 and 22. But people who are in that critical transition age period when they're getting ready to leave school and enter into the adult world. However, we're also open to working with young adults who may have already left the school system, but still think that they could benefit from this program, and people who may not be young adults anymore, but who are waiting for traditional waiver services, but look at this program and say, you know what, I think I could really benefit from those tools and resources. So we're primarily targeting younger students who are in that transition age, but the door is still open for other people to be involved too. Program enrollment is going to be limited to 3 years. It is a time-limited program, and participants will have an annual budget of $20,000 per year to apply toward the MAP services, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And we are planning and anticipating that we'll be able to start enrollment and launch the program this fall. So in terms of how it works, how it all fits together, and I've got a visual on the next slide for any of you who like diagrams, but someone will work with their MAPS team, and that consists of a MAPS certified case manager. So this is really not a traditional case manager, but rather and we can talk more about that if you'd like to know more about the case management side of things, but they'll work with a specialized MAPS case manager and a MAPS provider within our DIDD network to do some person-centered planning and create what we're calling a virtual community resource map. And they're going to use this map as the foundation to talk about the people, the places, the activities in their community that are important to them, how to get around to those places, what they like, what they don't like, what they're interested in, what their goals are. This map is going to be the foundation for everything. And then they're going to work with their team, and they're going to look at these 6 MAP services and figure out which of these services are going to help get to their goals. And so they're going to pick and choose and integrate a plan together, a pathway to accomplish their independent goals. And you'll see in just a minute that all 6 of these services can be integrated to help somebody increase their independence and be successful at home, at work, and in their communities. And the name of those 6 services are Community Navigator, Independence Coaching, Employment Innovation, Peer Mentoring, Enabling Technology, and Semi-Independent Living. So let me show this to you in a different way. So if you think back to just a minute ago, I said that the virtual community resource map is the foundation of everything. Everything that is done or provided all stems from this plan. And on top of that, a person will work with their MAPS team to integrate pieces of each of these 6 services. Not necessarily all of them, but just the ones that make sense for that person during that year of their life. And that may change over time. And ultimately, that person is going to be increasing their independence in these 3 domains of life: home, work, and community. So when we're talking about what their life looks like at home, people are going to be looking at home safety skills, health and hygiene, personal finances, smart home technology, skills and resources that they need to be able to live more independently, whether that's with a roommate, by themselves, with a partner, etc. At work, it's about helping people through pre-employment skills. So that's exploring their strengths, figuring out what they want to do for their career, for their job path, actually getting a job and advancing over the course of their career, and using enabling technology at work. And lastly, in community, this is all about connecting with their community around them, the people, places, and activities, being able to get around independently, whether it's on a bus or by foot, by wheelchair, driving, just however that person gets around, being able to do that more independently, developing new interests, new hobbies, new recreation opportunities, volunteering their time, being of service to their community, and also, you're sensing a theme here, using enabling technology to help them do those things in the community. So I'm going to go into a few other pieces, but before I do that, are there any questions just about the overall structure, about how the map fits with the services to accomplish these outcomes?
Jeremy, I'll encourage our audience to put their questions in the chat if they have them. And I do have a question about this. So there are a number of services listed here. Who are the providers of these services?
Great question. There are, and I actually have a slide for this, but I'm going to give you the appetizer right now, Dr. Davis, since you asked nicely.
Every time. I'm sorry about that.
No, this is perfect. So we are going to be looking at our existing DIDD provider network, and we know that there are providers within our network who have the skills, the experiences, who have demonstrated the leadership and the competencies to be successful MAPS providers. And so we are going to be doing some active outreach to those providers, and certainly we're open to working with any provider that meets those expected experiences and competencies, and we'll talk about that just a minute. But long story short, we're going to be identifying providers within our existing DIDD network and working with them, training them, supporting them to work with the case manager, to work with the participant and their circle of support to help them accomplish these goals.
One more question, Jeremy. So we've had some previous guests talk about peer support, and I know peer mentoring is one of the services that is listed down here. Are you going to go into more detail about that, or can you tell us a little bit more about what is expected with that particular service?
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite pieces of this, and I've actually got information about that in a few slides. So we'll get to that, definitely.
Good.
And I cannot see the chat box, Dr. Davis, so you just let me know if something comes in, okay?
Babs will alert us, and we'll ask the chat questions as they come up.
Okay, great. So I know that time is limited here, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on each of these slides, but I wanted you to at least get the whirlwind version. This is just a closer look at what the virtual community resource map actually looks like for someone who's using it on a device. And the beauty of it is it's really not that complicated, and it's not some expensive, super specialized piece of equipment or technology. Really, it's using Google Maps in a new way, and that's really what it is. And so people can map out their support circle, where they work, if they're looking for an apartment, what they like to do, who they like to see, and they use Google Maps to essentially map out what's in their community and how they like to spend their time and what their goals are. And zooming in a little more closely, you can see that for each of those locations or those people or those points of interest, a person can enter in a description, they can put links, they can put likes and dislikes, they can learn how to get directions between two places so that they can get from point A to point B. There's a lot that they can do with this tool. And so you'll see here that this is just an example for the Ocean State Center for Independent Living. This is another way that people can use this tool and look at it with photos and links, and it really becomes an interactive tool that someone can use as either before they go out to spend time in their community or while they're out spending time in their community. They can use it to keep track of where they are and what they're doing and where they want to go next. You can imagine how this would be a really helpful tool for people. This is just zooming in a little more closely because I know the font was small. This example is an animal hospital where this person works, or is, I think, maybe actually doing an apprenticeship or an internship. She has down the things that she likes about this place, the things she doesn't like, some links to a work journal, directions on how to get there. So this is just, it's a way for someone to keep track of all those places that they need or want to spend time and how to get there.
So does the person, is this crowdsourced information? Like, am I seeing information that other people have put in about particular locations as well as my own evaluations of that?
It'll just be your own. So a person will work with their MAPS team, their case manager, and their provider to use their technology, their device, tablet, computer, phone, whatever it is, and to create this tool for themselves. Now, they can certainly ask around or talk to other people if they want ideas about what to do or where to go, but it's not crowdsourced in the sense that you're not going to be able to see everyone else's map. It's just for you.
Hey, Jeremy, I want to jump in real quick because we're on, you talked early on about would we mandate people were utilizing technology in this program or would we not? As Jeremy said, we're not in the business of mandating utilization of anything, but Dr. Davis, for you and for the others that are on the call today who have been familiar with how we typically program in the community during people's day, whether that the community-based day service of old, community participation of today, the most unique and in my opinion, the most impactful component of this approach to programming is it virtually assures that people are not limited in scope, in location, or even in context to just the DSP who's assisting them that day. And so often, if you think about the way a day's events or even a week's calendar, if you will, of activities get planned, it's most of the time, and unfortunately, driven by the experience of the people who are providing the direct support. So their breadth of experience or understanding of their local community, their opinions about, Pizza Hut versus Taco Bell or any other two different opportunities during the day largely guide the development of how that person's day ends up looking. Now, obviously, person-centered thinking and planning is supposed to cut through that, but to the extent that it really has a tangible impact on that person's day, really, at the end of the day, is driven by that staff. Employment is even more, I think it's even more directly linked to the experience of the DSP. But the virtual community resource map, because it outlines everything within the radius that you're searching, all businesses that are there, all opportunities, all parks, it helps kind of tear down some of those pre-existing notions of the DSP, and then new interests can be sprung from each of those points of interest. So if I had no idea that I maybe wanted to visit a horse stable, and my staff who's helping me that day hates animals, I may never know that there's 10 minutes down the road, and that experience may take me down a path that would have never even been explored. And so this approach to it does force people into a more best practice or better practice approach to thinking about your community and day services in general. And we believe is going to have a pretty profound effect on the diversity of those plans. That'll be something we're studying in the first year.
Seems like you're creating your own ISP, so to speak, in some sense. And that's great stuff.
We did get one question. Is it more of a personal memo book rather than a Yelp?
Yeah, can you still hear me, by the way? I think I may have accidentally muted my headphones. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. I heard this beep in my ear and I thought, oh, great, I just muted my headphones. So it's less of Yelp and more of a personal plan, personal memo book. So it's not so much that you're giving ratings or liking things so that others can see it. It's more so that you can keep track of what you like and what you don't like so that you can figure out what your goals are and how you want to spend your life. All right. We ready to move on?
You can roll on.
All right, let's roll on. So I'm going to spend time briefly touching on each of these 6 services. But like I said, this is all recorded. You'll have access to all these slides, and so there's a lot more detail available. Community Navigator is the first service that we have listed here. The foundation of it is that virtual community resource map that will drive everything. And this service is really about helping people create that plan, that person-centered map, identifying points of interest, people, places, locations, activities, things that they want to do and how they want to spend their time, and then helping them navigate their community. So whether that's physically getting around, creating connections, doing outreach, developing relationships, working on soft skills, that's really what the Community Navigator service is all about. Independence coaching, as its name suggests, is largely about independence, as really all of these services are. But this one focuses mainly on someone's life at home and helping them develop home safety skills, personal hygiene and self-care skills, health management, meal planning, budgeting, personal finances, using technology at home to be more successful and more independent. And that can be as simple as a video Ring doorbell to a fire sensor above the stove to fall sensors throughout the house. I mean, there's a whole host of things that someone can use at home to be more independent. And independence coaching is all about helping someone develop those skills and figuring out how they want their life to look like at home. Employment innovation, you can probably guess, is all about working in the community. So there are a variety of pre-employment services that will help people figure out what they want to do, what they're good at, what kind of skills they want to acquire, where they might want to check out or job shadow, There's all sorts of technology-based options that people have to virtually explore work environments and get connected with new places. Of course, a big piece of this is helping someone actually get a job and practice for interviews, helping them figure out what tools they need to be successful at the job, creating a job coaching plan and a job coach fading plan, benefits counseling, anything that goes into getting a job, keeping a job, changing a job, getting a promotion, advancing in your career, anything related to employment would fall under this domain here. Peer mentoring, we talked about this just a few minutes ago. We know that people often learn best when they're able to connect with another person who has similar lived experiences, life experience, similar goals and interests. And so one of the core aspects of MAPS is being able to connect people with peer mentors who also have intellectual and developmental disabilities, who also have similar goals around increased independence, working in the community, living more independently, and connecting people with those peer mentors. And so just as an example of that, we, as you may know, we have a partnership with the Tennessee Believes program. And we'll be looking at those inclusive higher education programs as one of the sources or one of the pools of mentors. But certainly there's lots of potential here to be partnering with other organizations and people in the community to identify and train those peer mentors and get them connected with MAPS participants. So I'm going to pause for a second. Dr. Davis, did that answer your question about the peer mentoring aspect?
And so you mentioned training. There'd be a training for peer mentors, and so their qualifications are listed here: experience living with an intellectual or developmental disability, demonstrated success in employment settings, ability to convey empathy, and ability to collaboratively problem solve. Those are some of the basic characteristics, right. And then they'll get some training beyond that to help them become a peer mentor.
Right, there will be some training, and as you know, it's really a delicate balance, because on the one hand, so much of relationships and mentoring is so organic and unscripted, and we certainly want there to be lots of space and opportunity for people to have those organic relationships with people and not prescribe what they talk about or how they meet or how often they meet, and really leave that up to people to develop that mutual relationship. And at the same time, they will still benefit from a structured approach to training, some guides, some templates to help make sure that they're hitting on some of the key pieces of the program. So it's going to strike that balance of organic and natural relationship, but also providing the structure that they're going to need to be successful.
And I assume they'll be paid for this activity as well. I mean, that might go without saying, but.
Absolutely. Actually, that question came up during our presentation last week, and we wholeheartedly believing whenever it's possible to pay people for their time and experience, we should do that. So we have to work out the particulars of exactly how much and how they'll get paid, but there will certainly be a compensation aspect for the peer mentors.
One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, we're all thinking about right now, is the significant staffing problems that we're experiencing across the state and how important it is. These staffing problems, we think COVID caused it, but it really was going on before that. And now it's just been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic that we've been going through. Staffing is going to continue to be a problem. We've got to come up with programs like this to address that and to get more people engaged, more people who can peer mentor, for one thing, and more people who can live independently.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Jeremy, we've got a couple of questions before you move on.
Yeah.
Okay, Waverly Ann has asked, how are the resources populated once in a person's resource map? Is it accessible to all as a resource? For example, does the community navigator have access to resources that others recommend, or is everyone creating their own map from scratch? So that's the first question we've got.
That's a great question. And the first thing I'll do is admit that I am personally not an expert yet on exactly how the map works. But what I will say is that instead of thinking of each of these services as like a different plan or a different person providing the service, think of it as a person who's working with a case manager and a single provider, and that provider is going to be providing each of these services in different ways. And so they're all going to be working from the same virtual community resource map. So for example, on there, they might have, for community navigator service, they're going to have different points of interest on their map, places they like to be, people they like to meet with. They might have something on their map of where their peer mentor lives or where they like to meet for coffee. So that might be incorporated into their map. In terms of enabling technology, we'll get to that in a minute. But for employment service, on that person's map are going to be places where that person is looking for a job or where they work, maybe where they like to go on their lunch break or their other breaks at work. So I guess what I'm saying is that each of these services isn't going to create a new resource map. They are all going to be driven by the single resource map. Does that make sense, Waverly Ann?
She hasn't responded yet, but when she does, I'll
Okay.
let you know. I'll go ahead and
Okay.
give you the other question while we wait
Sure.
for her. It's from Michael, and it says, is the assumption that persons will use other devices and apps for general ratings, recommendations, directions, etc.?
And let me make sure I understand the question. So other devices apart from, actually, let me just ask you to clarify. Can you tell me what you mean by other devices?
I will wait to see if he
Okay.
responds.
And while he's responding, let me just say, so it's really going to look different for each
I've
person.
unmuted.
Oh, go
I've
ahead.
unmuted.
Perfect.
Is this app on a phone or is this its own kind of device?
It's on a phone. So the beauty
Okay.
of it is that whatever a
Okay.
person uses or is comfortable with, let's say that someone's already got an iPad or an Android phone, this, the mapping, the app is available on that device. And so
Okay.
are most of the other apps that they would be using through enabling technology. So people aren't having to carry around 2 or 3 different devices.
Oh,
Whatever they use in
good.
their life,
Good.
and the beauty of it is whatever they're comfortable with, that's what they get to use.
Okay. So my other question, previous question about, your own personal memo book versus, Yelp, they still have easy access to Yelp, Google Maps, and other kinds of things that will have directions, ratings, recommendations, and stuff like that. But then, jumping ahead to my next statement, I think it's really cool that the peer mentors will be there to help connect those bridges, rather than, uh, you know, it becoming a demand and compliance situation. Like you said, you want to go to the bank, or whatever. It's typical. So this is good. This is really cool. I was afraid that this was a standalone device that did only this personal memo mapping stuff. But if it's on the phone and they have access to the other apps and things they have, then it's much more useful. You know. So thanks.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well,
In fact, was
one
that
day they'll learn that Google Maps will let you rate your places and put your own review too. So
exactly. And so if someone wants to use Yelp, Google Maps, all of that stuff that they want to use to live their life that we all use, that's absolutely doable through their device.
okay.
And Waverly has another
Okay.
question as well.
Thanks.
We need to keep rolling through the rest of this presentation because we still have to one more presentation after you today. If we could keep moving.
Okay, and I'm not able to see that question. Do you want me to address it now real quick or wait till the end?
We can, or we can keep going. The next question is, who else can access this map? Is this something that the person can use for self-advocacy throughout their support network and for many years after the 3 years?
Yeah, so we'll get into much more of the particulars once we have this tool fully developed. There's going to be training for providers and training for people who are participating. But I think in general, it's safe to say that this is a tool that someone will be able to share with anyone in their circle of support that they think it's important to share it with. So whether that's with just their provider or a friend or a family member, I'm going to assume that that's relatively easy to do.
Okay, I think that's it for now. We can keep going.
Okay. So enabling technology, we talked about that a little bit. Basically, big and small and everything in between. Enabling technology looks different for everyone. It could be devices, it could be sensors, and there's also a way to use enabling technology to provide remote support, which means that someone uses one of those devices and actually gets real real life, real time support from an actual other person, not a robot, not artificial intelligence, but from a real other person who's not there with them physically, who can respond to them, who can address barriers or questions or help them get them connected to somebody. So that's just another way that people can use enabling technology to have more independence, because they may need some support, but they may not need someone physically in their house waiting for them to need support. And it's not for everyone, but for people who it works for, it's really a game changer. So I'm going to keep moving until someone stops me. Semi-independent living is a service for people who want to live on their own, by themselves, with roommates, with a partner of their own choosing, where it's their setting, it's their home, and this service is designed to provide some ongoing support to that person in their home. So helping make sure that they're set up with enabling technology in their home, that they've got connections with natural supports in their home and around their home in their community, and that they can live safely and fully in the community. So helping them with things like money management, meal prep, shopping, personal appearance and hygiene, home maintenance, all those things that go into living more independently on your own. All those things that, when we all, regardless of who you are, when it's time for you to live more independently, these are all things that you had to think about. How am I going to cook my food? How am I going to get my food? How am I going to get dressed in the morning and comb my hair and show up to work on time? And so this service is all about helping people get those pieces in place. Okay, so this is a little bit more nuts and bolts, and I think this is the second to the last slide. I talked about this a little bit, the budget. Each person's going to have up to $20,000 per year, each year for 3 years, and the providers will be reimbursed on an outcome basis, not hourly or fee for service, but based on the outcomes that they're helping people accomplish, milestones. Case management is funded separately, so that doesn't get taken from a person's budget. Their budget for each of those domains, work, home, community, is going to be weighted according to what they want to focus on that year. And that doesn't say that they can't focus on everything, but it helps guarantee that what that person says is most important to them is actually what's going to be prioritized in their budget for that year. So home, work, community. And of course, we're going to be monitoring progress and reviewing it very regularly, just to make sure, especially with a new program, that people are getting the services they need, that the services are person-centered, and if there are any issues, that we're working through them as quickly as possible. So lastly, I mentioned this a little earlier, in terms of the providers we're going to be partnering with, they are DIDD providers within our network, and they're those who have demonstrated experience in these areas: employment first, enabling technology, technology first accreditation, person-centered thinking, planning, and practices, and CQL accreditation. So ideally, we're looking to partner with providers who are on this pathway. So I know that was a lot of information, and we addressed some questions along the way. Babs, I'll defer to you to tell us how much, if we have any more time for questions, or if you need to move on to the next thing.
I have a quick question for you, Jeremy. Going back to your previous slide, you don't have to go back to it, but so the circumstances under which does an agency have to be identified as an agency to provide this service? So they'll make application to become a certified agency?
Yeah, there will definitely be a process for us to identify and determine whether or not a provider is a good candidate to partner with us on this. So certainly that'll involve some active targeted outreach to the providers we know and believe are in that category. And at the same time, if there are providers out there who think that they're interested, that they're wanting to be involved, certainly they should reach out to us to express interest, to make sure that we know that they're interested in being involved.
Yeah, there was also a question about the duration of this program. So it's 3 years, but is it only 3 years, or will you continue to receive some service beyond that?
Right. So the program that we're talking about right now, MAPS, is a defined 3-year, up to 3 years. And so it's possible for someone to leave over the course of those 3 years, but it's funded for up to 3 years. And at the end of those 3 years, they essentially become a graduate or a completer of this program. And the person's pathway at that point is really going to be up to that person. There may be some people who go on and who are at a point where they can live independently or semi-independently. There may be some people who decide that they want to apply for continued services through vocational rehabilitation, or get connected with a local center for independent living or other resources in their community. And there may even be some folks who do qualify for long-term supports and services at that point, even though that's not the primary target audience. There will certainly be people who participate in MAPS who at the end of it are still going to be eligible for long-term supports and services. So really it's 3 years, and after that point, our hope is that it will have significantly shifted the trajectory of that person's life in terms of what they're able to do and how independently they're able to do it.
This is such important stuff, Jeremy. So glad that you are back with the department working on this project. Jordan, thank you so much for being here today to talk to us about all this. Unfortunately, we run a little bit short of time, and I've got to get David Taylor on here right now, but I appreciate you guys coming on so much and talking to us about all these exciting things that the department's engaged in.
A pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. And so now we're going to shift gears a little bit because David Taylor, our Director of Nursing, has a topic that he wants to present a couple of slides on, or I don't know if he's going to present a slide or not, but this is some timely information from him about medication administration training. Before we go into that, I do want to announce that Shonda Garrison was the winner of today's prize. She identified first the difference in my backdrop. So if you'll look up above my head here, you'll see a silver horse. That replaced a buffalo that I had there the last time. So you'll be looking each week for a change in my backdrop. And the first person to identify it when we come back on will get the big prize. There's no money, there's no actual prize, except for the bragging rights for that week that you were the person that identified it. So please keep attentive to that as we move along. And David, thank you for being here today. I'm not going to ask you to share an interesting fact or anything because everybody knows you already from previous times you've been on here. And secondly, we don't have enough time for you to be able to do that. So I'm going to let you just jump right in and tell us about this medication administration training and what we should be prepared for.
Well, Dr. Davis, thanks for the time, and I appreciate it. It's getting down to the wire with our medication administration certifications extensions, and just to share a little early here with everyone, I hope to have an announcement out in open line by tomorrow. But the certification extension that was scheduled to end on March 31st will end on March 31st. However, we understand that providers have been in difficult positions with their with staffing and such, and may not have been able to meet that deadline. So providers with personnel that have not renewed their med administration certification by March 31st may request an additional certification extension through the DIDD exemption process. So in order to allow time for everybody to do this, we will be mindful of that, and exemption requests should be submitted as soon as possible, but no later than 4/15/22. Staff members that have not recertified by 3/31/22 may continue administering medications if their employing agency will be requesting a certification extension. And then there's some guidelines that we really need on that extension request. So extension requests are submitted by region, and so all the staff that have not been recertified by March 31st, if you'll please list their name and social security number on the request form, on the extension request form, and identify a plan for these members to attend a certification class. I mean, for example, if you have them scheduled in April already, just jot it down. If this member's been scheduled, this staff person's been scheduled in April. I'm also working to have the May calendar posted by tomorrow, and I appreciate the nurse educators and all the trainers that jumped up a little a week early to get that out quickly. Then we will also continue with the remote medication administration option until further notice. We're going to leave that option in place for providers that need to use it during this time also. So expect more in an announcement, and I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that that the extension will end, but we have a plan for agencies that still needed a little more time.
And so,
That's
David, the primary reason for an exemption is because you basically had staffing difficulties. You're having difficulty getting people to the training as a result of that. Are there any other legitimate reasons to ask for an exemption?
That's been the primary reason. I mean, that's out of the agencies that I've spoken to, that's been the primary reason. So.
Yeah, so we've been widely cognizant of the fact that people are having difficulty with their staffing at this juncture. And so I'm sure they'll appreciate that adjustment that we've made there. So thank you so much for coming on and tell us about that, David. If you have questions related to that, you can forward those to David, david.taylor@tn.gov.
Correct.
All right. If you have questions, just send them David's way. Thank you all for being here today. Don't forget about our upcoming presentations. Dr. Eric Carter next week, Vanderbilt Disability Services Survey, Chrissy Hood the following week, Laura Greer, Dr. Uzama Price in our next collaboration with NAD. So try to be here for all of those if you can. We appreciate you being here today. Thank you to Jeremy, Norden, Paul, and Jordan Allen for being on with us as well. And to all of you for being here with us. So we will see you again next week. Bye-bye, everybody.